Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm doing part one of a two-part series showing my process for creating a full color illustration. This week I'm going to be showing all the pencils and the inks, and then next week we'll be showing all the color. Now, my goal with this series of videos is to do a lot of it real time, but I am going to begin with just a little time lapse for getting the basic guidelines in place. Okay, well, hopefully you can see my concept here. I had this idea of a sort of mechanic, a woman who repairs gigantic robots, and she climbs up through a sort of portal in his shoulder area with a drill in hand to do a bit of repair work. Anyway, I thought this would be a nice subject for an illustration because it includes a character, a pose, and then also a lot of surface area that I can work on later on for creating details, the surface of the robot itself. So what I want to do now is keep refining some of these basic guidelines and maybe talk about my process for doing rough pencils at the beginning. You can see that I'm not trying to make super clean lines at this stage. I'm just sort of trying to get the basic structure in place. And once I've figured out, where the head of the robot is and where the figure of the female character is going to be, I haven't come up with a name. Somebody help me come up with a name for mechanic repair girl. Once I've got these basic larger forms in place, then I can start refining with the smaller details. So for example, I feel like this robot's head is a little too blank. And before I go any further, I should say that this is very much indebted to The Iron Giant, one of my favorite films, and part of the appeal of doing this illustration to me was maybe to pay homage to that film. And so this head looks a lot like The Iron Giant. If you've never seen that movie by Brad Bird, The Iron Giant, traditionally animated for the most part, a really great story. And great design for that robot. So anyway, I'm going in and sort of further refining the structure of this head. I wanted to, it looked a little too blank to me, my original design, so I'm going to add like an area in here that is maybe suggests a cheekbone. And then this coming across this jaw, this definitely is very much indebted to The Iron Giant, this idea of a gigantic jaw. And you kind of wonder, why does a robot need a gigantic jaw? And I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure we can come up with some reason if we stop and think about it long enough. But anyway, in terms of putting down basic guidelines for things, you sort of need to have a sense of what objects would look like in 3 dimensions. And I'm putting in, like here, I'm putting a line across the jaw to sort of give us the feeling that there's one side over here and then another side kind of curving across the front. I thought it might be interesting, and I don't want to make it too much like a human being's face, but I thought if I could get some kind of line right down the middle of the face that could sort of echo the idea or convey the idea of a nose without actually illustrating a gigantic robotic nose with robotic nostrils. So anyway, the key thing is that I save the details for later. I get the basic forms in place, and then later on I start adding the details. I suppose you could do it the other way around. I mean, some people, you could start doing details like this and then just gradually work all the way across the page. I think you would really have to have a strong sense in your mind to begin with of what the final result is going to be. I can't memorize or envision fully the picture right from the get-go. I need to sort of work my way toward it. So here I'm putting in some details for a neck area, which I imagine needs to be flexible. So I'm kind of creating an area of banding here that, to me anyway, conveys the idea that the neck can move a bit. And let's talk about structure. I feel like this upper shoulder area would benefit from having a line that, again, suggests structure. A lot of times I put lines across like this that are basically there to help me see the surface, right? maybe just a couple of lines across like that, and then I just get a stronger sense, like you come over here, whoops, knocking over the the jar full of pencils there. When you come across here, and just bringing that line down, for me, suddenly I feel like I see this form more. I understand its structure better. I want to convey almost like a collar here, coming across. Like this area is a collar, and then this area right here is maybe just connecting the shoulder section with the neck area. Sometimes I feel like things just look a little too blank, a little too boring, and I want to jazz them up with just a little extra detail. Like, what if we cut this a bit here and create a subsection, a subdivision of a subsection, and by doing that, to me, it just sort of gives it a little more sense of structure, gives some visual interest to that area of the drawing. I think what I should do now is to zoom in a bit on the character of the mechanic girl, and that way you'll be able to see more of the details as I work on them. Alright, so in a way, what I was doing with the robot, I'm now going to start doing with this character, namely going in for the details that I didn't go for in the initial rough guideline stage. So I thought if she has these sort of straps going across her body, that's another thing that can help convey the form, make her look a little more three-dimensionality. Let's get we'll get a big wide belt down here. And basically, yeah, the same advice holds that if you save the details for later, you can you just have a better sense of where they belong. I like, when I'm doing clothing like this, I like to add seams. It's a little bit like that same idea with the robot of just having a line that's going across here. Helps us understand her form. You get some lines of like wrinkles and stuff, and that's going to add to the feeling of this being fabric. I've got another video, a couple of other videos on drawing clothing folds and wrinkles. Maybe time to do another one of those, actually. But in those videos, I talk about how very often the wrinkles emerge right around the area of the elbow and maybe a little near the shoulder. But you see, again, I'm using this trick of adding a little bit of a seam. I hope that's the right word, seam. Going across, and that just, it has the dual purpose of making this look more like clothing, and then also just revealing the form a little better. I'll put a zipper going right down the middle of her uniform. And, just like one of these seams, this zipper line is fulfilling that same job of conveying the form. So basically, I mean, I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but as an illustrator, I think you're always looking for tricks to defy the two-dimensionality of the page and sort of trick the viewer into seeing the full form of the character, the object, the setting, whatever it is. And these additional lines, they're more than just details for the fun of it. It's more like you're thinking about, well, what can I do that will help convey the structure of this character. I'm going to go ahead and add like goggles. Like she needs protective goggles, of course, as she... although this is... I thought this was going to be a drill rather than something that... A drill could send up sparks. I suppose she may need protective goggles when she's doing drilling the surface of the robot. So anyway, I'm trying my best to imagine what the goggles would look like in 3 dimensions pushed up on top of her head as she takes a break from working on this robot. I liked the idea of doing this drawing. I like any time an illustration seems to almost suggest a story, like there's some sort of backstory to this girl who repairs robots. It felt like something that you might see in a Djibouti movie or something like that. Anyway, you'll see when we get to the coloring process next week why I decided to opt for this giant robot character, because I think it will allow for a lot of interesting surface detail. Well, the last thing that maybe needs a bit more detail, I would say, is this this drill. And, it could be a battery-operated drill, but you know what? I think it's going to be more fun to draw if it has a cord, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little cord. Sometimes I like the mix of like old school and high tech. Sort of like, really? They don't have batteries in the future? But it's like, come on, it'll be more fun if there's a cord coming down off of here. So, we kind of got the basics, I think, of the line work in place. Oh, she does need an eyebrow, doesn't she? Let's get an eyebrow in here. And I think it's maybe time to move on to the inking. Now, notoriously, I tend to do I tend to time lapse through the inking a lot in these videos, and my goal with this one was to not do that. Let's see how much I can get through in real time of the inking. I may have to cheat on that and just speed through some of it, but let's stay zoomed in on the female character, and I'm going to pull out my trusty Micron Pigma and do some of the inking. Alright, so I'm using a Pigma Micron 03, which is fairly thin, fairly fine point. And I'm going in and with like quick flicking motions trying to get her hair in place. And I find myself sort of repeating this same advice, I suppose, when I'm doing anything about inking, but it really does hold true that the more inking you do, the more you become aware of the speed, the speed with which you make a line affects the quality of the line itself. And the faster you can dash in the line in a way, the smoother that line becomes. Of course, you lose control when you draw a line really quickly. And so it's sort of a trade-off. It's sort of like, well, I got to know where the line is going to go in general, but once I start making the line, I'm going to just go fast so as to keep it smooth. You can hear my chair probably rolling across the floor. This is probably one of these ones where I should have detached the paper from the table so as to gain the benefit of the natural pivoting point of my wrist. But too late! I've kind of got it taped in place, and I don't think I should suddenly try to detach it right now. So, I like to tape it in place so that it doesn't move around while I'm filming, so you get a nice view of it. I'm going in and inking her eyes. Of course, this is where I stop doing those flicking motions and try to control things, because of course the eyes are incredibly important, and you don't want to get any lines in the wrong place. I think that's going to look alright. And go ahead and get the eyebrows. Eyebrows also very important, the angle of them, the location of them. Can't overstate this stuff. I'm always a little nervous when I'm inking a face. One false move and everything looks terrible. So, yeah, for good or for ill, you're going to see me trying to. One of the toughest things for me in drawing a face is getting this contour line of the chin coming up toward the cheek. I'm always struggling to get that in the right place, and you can kind of see me tensing up, fearful that I'm going to completely wreck the drawing. If I'm lucky, I may be able to correct that a bit. It seems close enough, though. I think I did all right. Oh, whew, I made it. I made it across the tightrope. And yeah, what else can I say? You know, sometimes I've worked out all of the details in advance by way of the pencil lines. Sometimes I may just decide to add a little extra detail on the fly in the inking stage. Of course, that you're taking a chance there because you know it's ink. It's very permanent by its very nature, and you don't want to wreck your drawing by suddenly adding something. But like, say for example, the belt buckle down here, I could have worked that out in advance with the pencil. I probably should have, actually, but I'm going to take a chance just to show you how I might jump in and do something like that on the fly and just sort of do it all in inking. now that I'm doing that, I'm wondering if I've got these little hooks on the right side of the belt buckle. Probably not. Too late now. And yeah, I can sort of see right now that my idea of doing all of the inking real time was always going to be a little bit too idealistic, just in terms of me running out of things to talk about and just the process of watching the video. I feel becomes a little dull if I do 20 minutes of inking all narrated. It's sort of, this whole idea of narrated videos is interesting because a lot of people like them, and then periodically I see the comment, "You talk too much, man. You need to stop talking." So I'm sort of torn between the knowledge of those two different audiences out there, some of whom enjoy the narrated process, hearing me talk about what I'm doing as I'm drawing. Then others get a little tired, understandably, of hearing my voice, my Kermit the Frog-like voice. So let's go ahead then and kick this into time-lapse to finish off the inking, and then maybe we'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well, we are pretty much done with the inking here. I'm just going to add a few more little details. My idea with this robot is that it's not a brand new robot, but rather an aging one that has rust spots and so forth. That's going to make it a lot more interesting when we get to the coloring stage next week. So I guess I could say just a few last things. One thing I should point out is that I did indeed switch to a different pen when I was doing some of these thicker lines, the 08 here. Kind of tricky to explain the thinking behind that, except that, a really large object very often, when you're illustrating it, you feel like it deserves thicker lines, and so I decided to do that. But that's just a matter of personal preference. But by no means would I say that that's something everybody does. And otherwise, yeah, you can see me doing a lot of stuff here, basically, that is just on the fly, coming up with little added details. I was talking about before how not everything needs to be worked out in advance in pencil. Although you may feel more comfortable doing it that way. So anyway, you get the basic idea of what I'm doing here, using just little thin lined extra dashes here and there to give a sense of the surface detail. A lot of that really will be achieved by way of the coloring, but I'm just getting in a few bits here and there to make this feel a little more finished in terms of the inking. It was looking a little blank and unfinished to me. A lot of times when I get to the edge of something like this collar, I feel like an added line here will convey the form of it, that it has a sort of thick, bold edge to it. These extra added lines at the end can really go a long way towards completing the effect of this thing looking like it has structure to it. And maybe it is time for me to wind this video down. I hope that you felt I was able to do a little more without the time lapse this time. And certainly when we get to the coloring next week, I'm going to be able to do a lot more coloring real time than I normally do. A lot of times the final coloring stage happens almost entirely in time-lapse, which is sort of a shame for those of you who want to learn more about that. Well, let me go ahead and grab the books and we can wind this video down. Okay, so I've got the books, which allows me to thank anyone who has supported me by getting them. We've got Miki Falls, Brody's Ghost, my 2 graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga 1 and Mastering Manga 2. I really do greatly appreciate the support of those of you who spend your hard-earned cash buying those books. It really does mean a lot to me, and it allows me to keep doing what I'm doing. But let's go ahead and grab this ink pen and lay it down on the drawing so that I can wrap this video up. I really do appreciate you watching it, and I hope you will watch the next one next week when I add the color. But for now, let's bring this one to an end. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.